Welcome into episode 4 of Ramie and Drew, just a couple of Milwaukee comedians talking sports and other bullshit. I'm Ramie Makloff. That's Drew Flaggy. And Drew, we have our first show with news to cover, with breaking news to cover. And that is that your breaking news face? That's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, it's also, we're 4 hours behind the breaking news. This is.
I know, but it's still pretty fresh. And that is that the Bucks fired their head coach, Adrian Griffin, and are currently in talks to hire Doc Rivers as their next head coach. And we'll talk about that story in just a second. And you don't even know all the ins and outs of that story just yet, courtesy of Eric Name. I'm going to fill you in on that. And anybody else who doesn't know yet, I'll fill you in on that in just a second. But Drew, off the top, just our initial reactions. I jumped on the Bart Winkler show, or Into the Winklerverse, I guess is what it's called now, on his podcast when the news broke. And that was when the news actually broke. And I wouldn't say I was shocked, Drew, because I'm shocked when something happens that I think is impossible. There's just no way that that's going to happen. That'd be shocked. I'm surprised because I didn't think it would happen. I'll own that. I'll take that L. And Bart was taking the L on his podcast today because he's gone back and forth and bookmarked a lot of tweets of people calling for Adrian Griffin's head and saying that this thing is not going to work. And now they're bookmarking his tweets and throwing them back in his face. So I'll take the L too, Drew, and say I didn't think this would happen, but I didn't think it was an impossibility either that the Bucks would take this extreme measure and fire their head coach 43 games into a season.
So I showed you this on Saturday when we were doing those shows at the Comedy Cabin.
Yeah.
That one guy who said Giannis and Dame bailed out Adrian Griffin. And I was like, well, that's what your two best players who are supposed to be starting all-stars are supposed to do.
Yeah, Griff wasn't going to go out there and take on the Cavs himself. You know what I mean, or whoever else.
I told you on the car ride down there that I was getting to the point where after every win, I was just going to post the entire roster besides Thanasis and Robin Lopez really bailed out Adrian Griffin. Brook Lopez gets
players,
box, and you're like, wow, Griff, you're real lucky on that one.
These players going out and playing, boy, they really bailed out their coach. He could have had to do that himself.
A fundamental game of basketball. They really. Yeah, I'm definitely surprised. When you said shocked, that's I don't know. You somehow turned Drew Holiday into Damian Lillard. That's shocking.
Yeah, that day I was shocked. That day I was kind of shocked.
The first episode we did, Bart flat out said, this, we're not doing this, that was a big part of our first episode that we had Bart on.
Yeah.
Was saying this. When we did a trial run episode, which you need to now, that's never getting released. Delete that, because we talked all about the Griffin haters. That doesn't exist on your computer. That's like the Batwoman movie that Warner Brothers was like, fuck it, it can't come out, delete it. That's we made a whole thing and it doesn't exist anymore. No one.
You know what? I might have to go back and pull a clip of that and and freezing cold takes ourselves.
Oh yeah, yeah, dude. We are the ice cold players of the game on that one. That when Sacramento did that to Russ, that was crazy. That was shocking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is wild. My phone was exploding today when I was at work just with all this shit happening.
You were trying to call me and I had a bowl of oatmeal in my hand and I didn't want to get on the phone with you and let it get cold. So I ate my oatmeal and didn't answer your call.
And I was wondering if Shams got his fucking Twitter hacked or something crazy happened. I didn't know if it was a troll thing that got posted in our group chat. I had no idea that this was real. And then my friend Rob, who he's the guy who actually texted me first when the Lillard trade happened because he was off that day. And he actually texted me before I got the Woj bomb that on my phone. So when he called me 3 hours after this all happened, I was like, yeah, that's old news now. I've vetted my sources, which is you. But no, that's why I was trying to call you and be like, is this real? Is this what we're talking about tonight now? This was that was nuts. Like, I didn't believe that it happened.
And then as I started processing it live on Bart's show, as I started processing it, first of all, like my first thought with anything Bucks is Giannis, right? That's like when any Bucks news breaks, I'm like, how's Giannis? Yeah, you're wearing your Giannis jersey right now.
I'm wearing the authentic Giannis jersey, which only comes out for special occasions.
Oh, you guys authentic. I got my Giannis prayer candle right here. I told you about this the other day. There it is right there.
I was going to say, this is literally like my prayer candle. Like I only wear this on special occasions when like the Bucks make like a big move, or it's like the season opener, or we're at like a playoff game, or like I'm deciding to eat food that doesn't have buffalo sauce or marinara on it. Like that's
only special occasions.
This thing is immaculate white. Like I never touch this thing. Like I really
sharp. I gotta say that thing is pretty sharp. But my first thought is Giannis, and like I didn't think that they'd hire Adrian Griffin without Giannis's input and blessings, or finding out if that's who we wanted. And I don't think they're making this move without Giannis's blessings. If not, and I don't know, I have no inside sources anymore, Drew. Those have dried up. I have no inside sources. If not at his request. And I'm not saying that that's the case, or that that's what I think happened, but it's at the very least with his blessings, and at the very most, this is exactly what Giannis wanted, was for them to pull the plug on Adrian Griffin 43 games into a season.
Yeah, I mean, and now it's like there's like the warning signs where it's like in retrospect they were there, where like remember there was that one game where there was a timeout called, and everyone in the national media, like Stephen A. Smith, made a big deal about this when Giannis didn't join the team in the huddle. And they're like, yeah, but he sits at the check-in table, whatever. It's fine. Like, he's kind of a goof. Like, maybe it wasn't pertaining to him. There was that one game where Giannis basically checked himself back in, like when Griff sat him down. He sat for like a play or something, and Giannis was like, no, fuck that. I'm coming back in. You know, there are the things like Damian Lillard asking to play the entire first and third quarter, them asking to go back into kind of Bud's defense, like that drop defense with Brook and everything, where it's like, there are too many things here now where it just seems like the players weren't on board. And I mean, you said you have this whole thing from The Athletic. I don't subscribe to it, so I get like the first like paragraph, and then it's like, if you want to read more, pay $5 a month. And I'm like, that's too rich for my blood.
Okay. Well, I'll give you the juicy stuff. Okay.
Hold on. I just want to say this, because like, did you watch the game last night at all?
Yeah.
Like the part, like I'm sure this has been brought up. I'll bet you guys probably brought this up on Bart's show, where Giannis pulled out. It wasn't a clipboard, but he had like a trapper keeper, and he was drawing up a fucking play or something, and he was like explaining something to Thanasis. And then like Dame kept looking over.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
And it's like, I'm sure players discuss that stuff, and like maybe, you know, Giannis isn't great at putting it into words, so maybe he wanted to draw a picture of it. I don't know. But like that just kind of seems like at a certain point that it's like he's not bought in on this. Like, and I mean, so like, yeah, it's just me speculating, but I don't think Giannis is a throw a guy under the bus kind of guy, but I think he's to the point where it's like, I've been here, I've done this, and this isn't acceptable how we're playing.
All right. Well, this is from The Athletic. I'm assuming this is Eric Name. I pulled this. I do have a subscription to The Athletic. Look at me, money bags, right? But I'm reading this just off of a screenshot from Twitter. And it says that lead sources say Doc Rivers, who signed on as an ESPN analyst after getting fired by Philadelphia in May, began to serve as an informal consultant to Griffin at the behest of the Bucks. 1 month later, multiple sources briefed on the matter now indicate that Rivers is the serious leader for the now vacant position for the preferred choice of key stakeholders. So they brought in Griffin as his informal consultant a month ago to sort of, and this is how it feels to me. And go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I read this screenshot. The Bucks brought in Doc Rivers because like I was reading this while I was at work, so yes. I could have read it backwards or something. So the Bucks brought in Doc Rivers, not that Griffin. I thought it was Griffin brought in. That's how I read it when I was at work, but again, I was working. So I was kind of doing two things at once. So the Bucks hired Doc Rivers.
It says here at the behest of the Milwaukee Bucks, he was brought in. So that sounds like they said to Griff, like, hey, we're going to bring in Doc. And it doesn't sound like it was really his choice. At the behest says to me that they sort of put that on him. And I talked with Steve Sparky Pfeiffer, my longtime co-host at The Fan. He now hosts the Green and Growing podcast, and he's going to be on the show tomorrow. And he's the one who told me this story, and this was his take. He'll elaborate on it more tomorrow, but this is my immediate takeaway is this feels like, to me, Drew, they brought Doc Rivers in the building to sort of get a feel for this thing, get his finger on the pulse of the Bucks, so that if indeed they do need to move on from Adrian Griffin, if this thing didn't get any better, that he could slide right in and the transition would be as smooth and as easy as possible for the Milwaukee Bucks changing coaches with 39 games left in the regular season.
Okay, so if it was the Bucks that brought him in, I'm okay with that. Like, look, this, like Griffin was hired at a time where he thought he was going to have a good defense, and I mean, we've talked about this so many times that, like, I've even said that, like, I think Grayson Allen is like a C+ defender, maybe, you know, at worst. You know, he's not great, but he's good enough. And Beasley's not even that. And so when you have, like, all those guys at a certain point, when Bobby Portis or Pat Connaughton came in, you had 2 or 3 guys out there with them that could kind of mitigate the problems that you get defensively, like with those guys. And now it's like that all got blown up. Dame's not a great defender. You really wanted him for his offense. And, I mean, shit, last night he didn't play very well offensively either. He was fucking 4 for 15 or something from the floor. Like, now it's like he's spending all this time on defense because Dame did play defense last night. He had a pretty decent steal at a certain point, but, like, they're not using anybody properly, I think, on that team. And, like, you can't just let Giannis be a bulldozer every single night because he's going to hurt himself. And I just don't know what the offensive scheme is that's any different to me than what, like, Bud was doing. I don't know what the defense is. And Giannis said in postgame they were, like, confused, or like that players were lost at where they were supposed to be. And that's a bigger issue, I think. It's like, if you're just getting beat by guys, that's one thing. But when people don't know where they're supposed to be, that's a problem. And there was even a point where it's like Beasley on, like, a switch last night. Chris Middleton almost had to grab him by the shoulders and move him like he was a goddamn 5th grader and be like, no, you go over here. Like, they both, like, went the same way. It's like when you walk towards somebody in the aisle at a grocery store and
you start doing this thing.
Yeah. You're like, oh, no, you go. But it's like they were doing that while the ball's getting passed around. And it's like, you can't be tripping over each other like that. It's not the soup aisle.
Now, that being said, I was, like I said, I wasn't shocked, but I was surprised. And we've talked about it, Drew, on actual episodes that have aired, that I thought you almost had to give Griffin at least a year, because you knew when you're hiring a first-time head coach that there are going to be growing pains, just like with a rookie who's a player who you draft. You know what I mean? There are going to be growing pains. There's going to be a learning curve for a guy. I think that the Bucks expected that, but I also think that was before you traded for Dame Lillard. Like, if you remember the timeline of events, you hired Adrian Griffin and then traded for Damian Lillard. And I think that ups the urgency, that ups the pressure, it ups the expectations, both inside and outside the organization. And I think that's why the Bucks make a move that's very surprising, that's the 7th time I've said surprising on this show, but sort of unorthodox. You know what I mean? Teams that are trying to win championships aren't usually changing coaches more than halfway into a season.
Well, and that the window closing argument too is like that was one of the things why I brought up the other day, which we never ended up talking about, was I was like, can you bring up the contracts of, like, the other teams that are the powerhouses in the East? If you're going to look at Philly, Boston, and Cleveland, which are probably the top, you know, our other top 4 seeds along with us. Donovan Mitchell's not re-signing with Cleveland. He said he's not taking the extension. I'm sure he would take a brand new contract if they paid out the ass for him. Jaylen Brown just got a ton of money, but like Drew Holiday is expired. He's got a player option for next year. Porzingis is off the books after this year. So I think a lot of those teams, their window is like this year. And the Bucks have a 3-year window, in my opinion. If you win one now, I've said if you win one now or next year, Dame plays his entire contract out, probably hits free agency or something, unless we just unload him in that 4th year. But you got Giannis, you got Chris for 3 this year and then 2 more after. You got Brook for this year and a year after. And honestly, if he's still holding up, I can see 1-year deals until he just can't do it anymore. I mean, he is 35 now, but he's a freak of nature also with the way he's been able to reinvent himself. And you're just going to be getting guys until the wheels fall off of this thing. You're going to get 1-year Malik Beasley deals and stuff like that. You're going to be looking for guys in the buyout market after the deadline every single season. And that's just the way it is. And everybody is, I've been seeing a lot of people upset about like, we have no 1st-round picks. Well, we don't have time to develop a 1st-round pick.
Who gives a shit about 1st-round picks? You're a championship contender. Like, look at all the championship contenders. Almost all of them had mortgaged their future and traded away the vast majority of their 1st-round picks.
But do you remember all the slogans that we used to have where it was like, work hard, play hard when we were kind of crappy?
Build the future. Yeah.
Build the future. Yeah. It's like, well, we built the future. We're living.
Yeah. We're in the future. The future is now.
I've been a lot of people that are like on the draft pick thing. I'm like, okay, but like, do you remember when LeBron and Kyrie won that championship in Cleveland? That team never got better than what they were with those guys. Yeah. There is a point where it's like you might never get 2 generational talents on the same roster again in their primes. Like Kyrie is really good with Luka right now, but they're not really a scary team together. It's like if you have Dame and Giannis together that are playing at their primes, that's going to be really scary. I hate on the Celtics a lot because they're our biggest rivals. I'm not afraid of Tatum. He doesn't freak me out. I'm not even really scared of the Clippers, even though everybody on the team is like a 2-way player. Like there was one night, I think it was last week, that I looked at all the scores, or the betting lines on everybody, and every player on that roster had 11 points, but they were blowing a team out. It was like clockwork. It's like, now you get the ball, now you get the ball. And everybody did what they had to do in like the first half. Like nobody had over 15 on that team, but everybody was in double digits. That was crazy.
Yeah, the Clippers again stay healthy for a whole season, and I might be scared of you, but I don't believe that they necessarily can. And I take no joy in saying that. I don't want people to get hurt, but track record says that they got a bunch of guys that can't play 82 games plus a playoff run. And the thing, a lot of people like. I don't know if they just don't think about it or whatever the case might be. A playoff run is 20, 25 basketball games and within like a 6-week span where you're playing just about every other night, playing 20 to 25 games. Show me a stretch where the Clippers have been able to put out all 4 of those guys for 20 to 25 straight games. It just doesn't happen. And it's the same thing I said about the Nets when they had their big 3 put together. And you could maybe say that about the Bucks because Dame has missed some time and Chris missed, of course, about a lot of time at the beginning of the year. Giannis has missed a couple games. But the Clippers have a long track record. Those guys that they have a long track record of not holding up for stretches that long. And so that's why I wouldn't fear the Clippers in a playoff stretch.
No, like I don't think there's any reason for the Bucks or Bucks fans to really fear anybody.
Anyone. But the Celtics don't scare them. I mean, you said you don't fear Jason Tatum. Like if I was standing in the lane and Jason Tatum was bearing down on me, I'd be shitting my pants. But if I'm Giannis, I don't fear Jason Tatum.
I'm not scared for my team. Okay?
Thank you. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay, it's all relative. All right,
fair.
I'm confident in them to be able to turn this around, but like I'm still like shocked. Like I'm like processing. And also, I feel bad for Adrian Griffin too.
I do too. But because it's not entirely his fault. Like I said, this is a different job than the one that he took. When you talk about the pressure and the expectations, this is a different job than the one he took when you go out and trade for Dame Lillard a month after he was hired to be the head coach.
Yeah, that was. I mean, yeah, it completely changed exactly what he was expected to do and what this team's expectations were. I mean, the Bucks are as all in as they're ever going to be. Like, this is like, we'll never, and this is like why I haven't soured on the team or anything, even in the rough stretches, because this is the best group of players that we're probably ever going to get to put together in Milwaukee. Like, unless something freakish happens again. But, like, come on, you're not going to go and make a trade for another Damian Lillard. Like I told my dad today, I was like, yeah, the only upgrade you make from Dame Lillard is honestly if you get Steph Curry. That's it.
Yeah. No, you're right. And that is why, Drew, when you say that, and first of all, like Chris went third on the all-time Bucks scoring list. So now you have the all-time leading scorer, the all-time leading rebounder, the all-time leading steals guy, the third leading scorer, the number one three-point shooter in the history of the organization, and throw Dame Lillard on top of all that I just said Giannis and Chris have done in a Bucks uniform, and you got one of the top 50 or 75 players in the history of this league. Add in Brook Lopez, man, you'll be lucky if you ever see another roster this stacked again. As a Bucks fan, that's the reality of it. There aren't that many rosters stacked like this in the league right now, and it doesn't come across or happen that often.
That's honestly something else I wanted to bring up was Chris Middleton moving into. That was my big topic for today is Mr. Consistency, number 3 all time.
Yep. Yeah. You got to be pretty inconsistent to be the third all-time leading scorer in the Bucks organization.
I know a couple of our friends are going to be like, yeah, but this is like the Brett Favre stats where it's like, yeah, it's like he played for 1 million years. So of course he leads the league in interceptions. And it's
Brett Favre was fucking great. Like, yeah, I mean, he's not as a person. He stole money from welfare recipients, but as a football player, he's fucking great. All those stats are amazing. All those records he holds are fucking amazing, dude.
It's like, okay, it's like, so Chris Middleton's been able to stay in the league being inconsistent for as long as he has.
It's ridiculous.
Accidentally his way into third place. Like,
again, get off. I encourage you to get off Facebook, unless you're watching this on Facebook right now. I appreciate you. But Drew, all this, what we're saying about the timeline and about the quality of this roster, while I didn't expect it, and I don't know if I necessarily even thought they should fire Adrian Griffin just on the basis that like the guy deserves more of a shot and deserves to get that chance at a learning curve. I also, on some level, I like the move. And this is what I said on Bart's show today, and I've said this for years in my many stops talking about sports as a profession, which is every organization, every general manager, they all make mistakes. Even the best one you can think of, like the greatest general manager in the history of general managers, they have made mistakes. The best ones, they recognize those mistakes as quickly as you possibly can and correct course. And if John Horst and the Bucks organization think that this thing just wasn't going to work, and you're half a year into a 3-year window, that's 15% of that window closed. That's 15% of that 3-year window that's closed with the head coach who you don't think you're just going to get there with. Then this is what good organizations do. Great organizations make mistakes, but they recognize them and correct course quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. Like, it's it sucks that this had to happen to him, but like, I don't know, man. Like, you don't give a 16-year-old a fucking Ferrari, okay? Like, they don't know how to shift the gears. And like I said, there's the confusion for professional players out there. Like, when there are guys who literally won a championship, and there are guys who made deep playoff runs, like Dame. You know, it's like they're like, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. Like, that's crazy. Like, you can't have that. You can't win games like that, or like at least tough games. And yeah, we've had like a really easy schedule. That's another thing too. Like, we've played a lot of games that we've made look very tough. I'm not sold on that Knicks roster at all. And, you know, us getting kind of embarrassed on Christmas Day was a little obnoxious. But I'm like, all right, whatever, we're going to hammer this out. But if we were already consulting Doc Rivers, I mean, shit. I mean, might as well just bring him in. It's a safe bet. And, like, I've even said that I thought that Doc Rivers is one of the most overrated coaches in the league. Like I'm not a big Doc Rivers lover here, but like at this point, like I just want them to go call every single available coach. And if they gotta get rid of a couple people on this thing, I'm just like, just bring them all in. Just like every single person that wants to try to get this thing right and go win a championship with this team, I'm like, just bring them in. And they know they have the expectation that this does not fail. So,
okay, this brings me to the next thing I wanted to ask you, which is it looks like it's pretty close to a sure thing. It's going to be Doc Rivers, but before that was the case, I don't know about you, Drew. For me, it had to be a veteran, a guy with a track record. Like when I heard that Griff was getting fired, and we didn't know yet that it was close to a lock that it was Doc Rivers. I was like, okay, you got to go get somebody with a track record, somebody who's proven and done something in this league. What were the names that were running through your head? Because I threw out some pretty stupid ones on Bart's show today, if you care to hear those.
Well, yeah, I want to hear your crazy ones, your meme takes and everything. And like, you're going to be talking about like Scott Skiles and shit like that. Like,
No, I said Phil Jackson was one guy who would be on my list. I also said I'd take the Van Gundy brothers as a team, and one on the road and one at home. I don't hate that idea. Or also threw out there maybe, and honestly, I'm only half joking with this. Maybe you bring back Coach Bud. And here, because Drew, I look when you.
I'm not against it. That's the thing. Where like I'm not against a Coach Bud resurgence.
Let me ask you this: I think almost anybody would have said, "You're a 1 seed, you lose to an 8 seed. Something's got to change. Like you got to shake something up. They couldn't just come back this year with everything being the same. If the Dame trade happens before they fire Bud somehow, they probably don't make the coaching change. That's the shakeup. No. That's the shakeup that they needed this offseason after going down to an 8 seed. Coach Bud is probably still here if you somehow flip the timeline in how those events occurred.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think that would be the big change that needed to happen to see, can we score in crunch time against the Miami Heat now? Like, because we couldn't. Like, Drew Holiday couldn't make layups, and I love Drew Holiday, but like he couldn't make layups in the playoffs for some reason. It was crazy. Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, I think that you're right. I think Bud would have stayed. They would have kept him had this happen. The first name that went to the top of my list, and this is shouldn't be a shock, it was Terry Stotts, where that was my number one.
The next name I was going to bring up. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So wait, let me try to read your mind here. Is it Doc is going to be the head coach? Do you call Stotts and say, "Hey, you want your assistant coach job back"?
I was just thinking about Terry Stotts as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I would be all right with that. Like, but
I mean, yeah, that'd be great. I mean, if he's part of Doc's staff, cool. But he was one of the guys that was on my short list because Drew, I know you watched Winning Time. We talked about that while we were carpooling to our comedy show over the weekend, and I said this on Bart's show today. The way that whole thing broke down with Griff and Terry Stotts, it reminded me of, remember Pat Riley was very close with Magic Johnson, and that made Paul Westhead very insecure about the whole thing, and that's where there started to be a rift. The whole thing of Terry Stotts coming over with the relationship with Dame, and then the incident in practice that day where he was sort of working off to the side with Dame, and Adrian Griffin was like, "Bring it in," and they weren't bringing it in, and then he hollered across the gym. That reminded me of that whole thing, and maybe Stotts having this close relationship with one of the best players on his team, he felt like compromised his authority a little bit. And he felt he needed to exercise that authority and make Stotts and the whole roster respect his authority, to quote Eric Cartman from South Park. I think, and what happened in that situation, Drew, was, we all know, whether you watched the show or not, Pat Riley ended up being the head coach, being a pretty damn good one, and winning a few titles as the Lakers head coach. So that it reminded me of that back then when the incident first happened. And then when the news came today that Griff was fired, I was like, could history be repeating itself here? And they bring Stotts in to be the head coach.
Okay, so now it's like I'm going to go one step further, and I'm going to Hollywood this now. Do you think that Griffin put a leash on Damian Lillard the way that Paul Westhead put one on Magic? Where it's like, you're going to play the way I want you to, instead of Dame just bringing that ball up at the logo and just firing one off and just
I don't think so, because we had heard on multiple occasions that players went to Griff with things and he was receptive to it and was willing to try it. He didn't seem like a my way or the highway type of guy. Doesn't he have like a doctorate in leadership or some bullshit like that? Like,
who cares? That's whatever. You gotta. Like, I'm a professor of leaders. Like, military. I don't know what to tell you. Like, thousands of Marines that are leaders. Like, it doesn't mean they can coach basketball.
I'm just saying, if he went through that kind of schooling, leadership 101 is you're receptive to criticism and input from the people who you're leading. So I don't think that was the case. Again, I don't know.
Yeah. And like, yeah, he was receptive because he lets Dame play the entire first and third quarter and stuff. But like, there's just sometimes like I said, it could have just been Dame's personal things he's going through. But like, something seemed off about the way he was playing, like for a lot of games. And like, there are some games, there was the one game that actually I would say was really telling, because I was at that one. That was the Detroit game when Giannis got ejected over some bullshit like real early. Mm-hmm. And basically we had no Giannis. We had no bulldozer down there. The wrecking ball wasn't there. So Dame just fucking popped off. And it was like, because he was playing just to win a basketball game the way he knew how. And I'm just like, I hate to say that like he was being used wrong on the team, but like I haven't liked the totality of how Dame has had to play on this team, because I was expecting a lot more inside the arc, just a hezzy step back, little jumper and stuff like that, and he's just not taking those a lot. No, he's making Giannis great. Like his assists, I think Dame's assist numbers are up this year from what they were in Portland, just because you have guys that are better players than what Portland had last year.
Yeah.
But with Brook and Giannis down low, like Dame does find them pretty frequently. Beasley rotating around the perimeter, he finds him pretty easily. So it's like, it's not that Dame's not playing as like a team player, because he absolutely is. Like, he's doing what's being asked of him in the moment, and he can turn it on and off. It's just he's inefficient a lot of nights right now, and I still think he's struggling to figure out where he fits in Griffin's system. And I'm just kind of interested to see what they're going to do tomorrow night against Cleveland, because I want to see, are they going to play random because they kind of have to? Like, I don't think Prunty's going to be running Griffin's entire playbook here.
Well, I mean, Doc Rivers was already in the building, so he might have them running a few of his plays already.
Oh, Rivers was actually in the building, not just like film schooling them or whatever.
I mean, it doesn't go into detail what his day-to-day duties were, and if he was remote or coming into the office every day, but he was certainly involved. He was certainly involved as a consultant, man, which is, again, sort of a backdoor way of getting your next coach in the door. But if you think you might need to pull that parachute, smart to have it there and ready to go. You know what I mean? It might seem slimy to people, and maybe it even is, but you do have to sort of cover your ass. Especially when, as we're talking about sort of a 3-year window, as we mentioned, Drew, that there's no time to waste with this whole thing, man. And I don't know that they wouldn't have figured it out with Adrian Griffin, but if the people in the building and the people who make those decisions sort of felt like it was never going to work with Adrian Griffin, then yeah, man, you as slimy as it feels, as unfair as it feels, you got to do it. You got to make this move.
Did you see that we're 27th in defense this month?
That's pretty bad.
There's 3 teams that are worse than us, and I'll bet you I could just name them off the top of my head. It's probably San Antonio, probably Detroit. Fuck, who else is bad? The Wizards, probably.
Yeah, the Wizards are really bad.
They're probably the only teams worse than us.
Do you care what Magic Johnson thinks about the move?
Well, I mean, considering he got Paul Westhead fired, yeah, actually I do.
That's fair. He tweeted out, I think the Bucks firing former head coach Adrian Griffin was a big mistake. He says it's not his fault the Bucks traded their best on-ball defender, Drew Holiday. They are not a good defensive team and are all around too slow. Did you freeze or are you just...
No, yeah, my brain reset where it's like...
I was going to say, did your computer freeze or did your brain freeze with what I just read to you from Magic Johnson?
Did Magic Johnson watch Winning Time?
He lived it. What do you mean, did he watch it? That was his life.
Who played Magic Johnson in Winning Time? Go look at what him and Adrian Brody have to say. Adam McKay, somebody, whoever wrote it, John C. I want to know what Dewey Cox has to say about this right now. That is absurd to be like.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd.
What? It's like one of those things where I was like, yeah, I did it, but like I had a reason. Like, what the fuck? What is it? Go get dinner with fucking Ohtani right now, okay? I was interested in what he said until it was profoundly stupid.
Yeah, I love Magic Johnson. He's one of my favorite basketball players ever. His tweets usually are kind of stupid.
That's crazy. What? The Iron Sheik died and his Twitter is still going. Like, what does he have to say about this?
Do you want me to check?
Probably talking about Griffin.
I can look.
Brony and he break his back, make him humble or something. Like, that's.
Let's see if the Iron Sheik had any thoughts. Well, the ghost of the Iron Sheik. No, he had no thoughts on the Adrian Griffin firing. That's a negative.
What does he have to do all day? He's just haunting Twitter.
By the way, and we should wrap this thing up soon. But you didn't even comment on all the work I did today. Look at this. Look at this set.
Is that your degree in leadership right there?
What, this right here?
Yeah.
No, you know what this is? This is the scorecard from Game 6 of the 2016 World Series when the Cubs beat the Cleveland Indians, and it's signed by the radio voice of the Chicago Cubs, Pat Hughes. That's his actual scorecard. That's Pat Hughes' scorecard from the World Series. I mean, a copy of it. It's a copy of it, but the signature is real.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then this is Michael Jordan and Harry Carey. This is my dog. This is the Mecca. This is the Mecca floor right here.
I recognize that one.
Used to play on. And I got a ring light. Look at me. Look how bright it is in here. Look at this, Drew.
I think I know what I did last time where the light was better. Let me go change something real quick.
There's no need for that. You don't really need to do that. Drew's going to work on the lighting in his room.
Yep, nope, didn't do it.
It's exactly the same. You're looking exactly the same.
There's a shadow on my face. There is.
Just get one of these here ring lights. You $25 at Target. Look at this thing. Look at it. That's this little doodad right here. $25.
Fine.
No, it's easy stuff. Easy peasy.
Remember, I'm still doing this on my phone for right now because I gotta fix my laptop.
Oh, they have little ones. And it comes with like a tripod and you can put a light on it. Tripod, whole thing. You'll be all set. You'll be all good. They even have ones that have a microphone attachment, which we could use for the stand-up comedy. This is all stuff we should be talking about off the air and not wasting our listeners' time with it.
No, my phone is actually propped up on my printer bag from work.
High-tech operation that we run here on the Ramie and Drew show. Any final thoughts, closing thoughts on the Adrian Griffin firing today, Drew Flaggy?
No.
All right.
That was just, like I said, it blew my mind that we actually did it.
Yeah. Like I said, I was surprised, not shocked, but I was surprised. I didn't see this coming.
It's one of those things where it's like I said, my dad's not a big NBA guy. Like, he doesn't really like it at all. But so when he texts me something about the NBA, I'm like, oh, that got to everyone. Like, everyone's all like, what the hell's up with that? But Brewer season's right around the corner for him.
It's a wild day.
That's going to be
wild day.
What?
Yeah, I said it's a wild day for the Milwaukee Bucks and Bucks fans.
I still think that we have the roster to hold this together until.
Oh yeah. I had one more question for you, which was on episode 1, and if you didn't hear that, go catch it. We had Bart Winkler as our guest. I said, and you both agreed with me, the excitement, the optimism that I had about the Bucks trading for Dame Lillard at that point hadn't been dampened or lessened at all. And somehow, some way, today, with them looking for a new head coach, I'm still right where I was when they made the Dame trade. I'm still as excited and as optimistic as I was on day one. And here's why, Drew, because this is a superstar league, man. Not to say coaching doesn't matter, but there's not a better duo in the Eastern Conference and, for my money, in the NBA than Giannis and Dame. And it's going to take a really, really good team and a deep team and a well-coached team to beat them. And I just don't think a team that complete is out there. Once we get to playoff basketball and it's about our superstars against your superstars, I think the Bucks win that matchup every time.
Yeah, like I said, I'm excited for just to watch the players every single night. Like, I've only missed one total game this year, but like this is. I'm a little bit like, oh, what's the vibe of the locker room going to be? You know what the most encouraging thing is going to be is if we just come out tomorrow and punch Cleveland in the mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, and I have nothing against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't hate any of the players on that team. I actually think they're a really fun team to watch. But if we get out there and actually, like, if we just come up and just put a 20 ball on them in the first 6 minutes, like, that would be real nice. That'd be great to see, and just watch the players kind of. I want to see their body language mostly and like how they're responding. Like if they play like there's a weight off their shoulders or something. Because we watched that one game when we went to Red Lion Pub, the Rockets game where we lost, and just Damian Lillard's body language looked like he was, and that was the night before he decided to take a day off from the team.
Personal day, yeah.
But like his body language was like indicative of how the team was going, it seemed like. Like, everyone seemed discouraged except for Giannis, who put up 48 points and had a triple-double that night.
And by the way, apparently on that Cleveland roster, Tristan Thompson. I had no idea today until it was announced that he was suspended 25 games for taking some sort of performance-enhancing drugs. A, Tristan Thompson was in the league, and
that was shocking.
And B, he was cheating for a 3-1-1 line? Like, what the what the fuck, dude? What is happening? He was taking PEDs to put up 3-1-1.
Do you remember when he when he was on the Bulls and they just showed him just trying to make like little bunnies?
Yes.
Like, it seemed like a joke. Like it just, I don't know, man. That was crazy. And yeah, surprising Adrian Griffin getting fired. Shocking Tristan Thompson still in the league.
But at least this time, Tristan Thompson getting caught cheating didn't end with a pregnancy. So that's a plus. That's a big win for Tristan Thompson.
Viagra?
By the way, tomorrow on the show, we'll see how the Bucks do tomorrow when they take on the Cavs. But before that, we'll be talking with the aforementioned Steve Sparky Pfeiffer, my longtime co-host on 1250 AM The Fan, and now the host of Green and Growing, a Bucks podcast, as well as Curd and Long, a Packers podcast, and much, much, much more. So obviously we'll be talking with him about this. We'll talk with him about the end of the Packers season. That'll be on episode 5 of Ramie and Drew tomorrow. This has been episode 4. Find us on YouTube and Spotify. We appreciate y'all listening. Drew, I will talk to you next time.
Bye.